Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. You're curious about how mood and confidence can really mess with your decisions, especially when you're dealing with the unknown, and that's exactly what we're diving into today.
We've got this super fascinating research study to help us out. It's from behavioral sciences, and the title is, get this, Navigating Uncertainty, the Role of Mood and Confidence in Decision-Making, Flexibility, and Performance.
Wow, they really weren't messing around with that title.
No, they weren't.
But the big question here is, can a good mood actually make you a better decision maker when you're faced with uncertainty?
Well, that's exactly what the study tried to figure out.
Okay.
So they designed this experiment to put people in situations where they had to make choices with only a little bit of information, kind of like trying to find your way through a maze in the dark.
Ooh, I like that analogy. Tell me more. How did it work?
All right, so imagine you're in this study, right? You're shown these pairs of hiragana characters, which are like part of the Japanese writing system, and your job is to pick one character from each pair.
Okay.
And sometimes you get a reward if you choose correctly.
Okay, sounds simple enough, but I'm sure there's a twist.
Oh, absolutely, there's a catch.
Okay, tell me.
You don't know which character in each pair is more likely to give you the reward. So it's all about learning by trying things out and making mistakes and, dealing with that uncertainty.
So you're basically thrown into the deep end and you got to figure things out as you go.
Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, the study is divided into two phases.
Okay.
The first one is called the learning phase, where some pairs have a 50-50 chance of a reward, just like flipping a coin, but other pairs are biased, meaning one character has a much higher chance of getting you that reward.
Okay, so there's strategy involved here.
Yes.
You got to figure out which pairs are the good ones, the ones to exploit to get those rewards.
You got it. But then there's this thing called the reversal phase. And that's where things get really interesting.
Oh, what happens there?
Think of it like you've finally mastered a level in a video game, but suddenly the rules change on you.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right.
It's like, wait, what just happened?
Exactly. Those 50-50 pairs, they shift. One becomes the high reward state, so you're more likely to win there.
Okay.
And the other one becomes the low reward state.
So not only is there all this uncertainty,
Yeah.
but now the rules are changing on you mid-game.
Exactly.
I can definitely see how that would mess with someone's mood.
It did. It definitely did. And the researchers were clever about how they defined mood in the study.
Oh, how do they do that?
So they looked at the difference between what you expected to happen, like your reward prediction,
Right.
and what actually happened.
So if you're expecting a reward but you don't get it, that's a bummer, right?
Right. That's a hit to your mood.
That makes sense.
And they found that mood was heavily influenced by those shifting reward states, especially during the reversal phase. High reward, you're feeling good. Low reward, not so much.
Yeah, makes sense.
But they weren't just measuring mood, they were also looking at confidence.
Okay, what exactly do they mean by confidence in this context?
It means how sure you feel about making the right decision.
Okay, so it's not just about feeling good or bad, but also about how certain you are about your choices.
Precisely. And guess what?
Right.
They found that confidence was consistently higher when participants were in that high reward state.
Okay,
So feeling good seems to go hand in hand with feeling sure of yourself,
that's interesting.
isn't it?
So does that mean a positive mood could lead to better decision-making
That's a great question.
because you're more confident in those choices?
And that's a key question they were trying to answer.
Okay.
What they found is that high confidence led people to exploit the choices they already knew were good.
So like sticking with a winning strategy?
Exactly. But when their confidence was low, they were more likely to explore, trying out different options just in case there was something better out there.
It's like when you're feeling super confident,
Yeah.
you stick with what you know works. But when you're unsure, you're more open to trying new things.
Exactly. It's all about the interplay between mood, confidence, and how we approach making decisions when things are uncertain.
Right.
But it gets even more interesting when we bring in metacognition.
Ooh, metacognition. Sounds a bit intimidating, but I'm ready for it.
It's not as complicated as it sounds.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Metacognition is your ability to think about your own thinking.
Okay.
It's like having an inner coach evaluating your decisions and strategies.
So it's like that awareness of our own thought processes.
Yeah.
Like taking a step back to analyze how we're making those decisions.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. The study found that metacognitive bias was actually improved in the high reward state.
Whoa, wait. So being in a good mood actually makes us better at reflecting on our own thinking? That's pretty wild.
It is a fascinating finding, right? It suggests that a positive mood might actually enhance our ability to evaluate how we're making decisions, which can make us more adaptable and responsive to new information.
This is so interesting. So we're seeing how mood and confidence are intertwined, and they both play a big role in how we handle uncertainty.
But the question is, how do we actually apply all this stuff to the real world?
Exactly, because, let's face it, life rarely gives us these nice little pairs of hiragana characters to choose from.
Nope.
Our decisions usually have much higher stakes and way more things to think about.
Absolutely. But what's really cool is that
Yeah.
even though that study used a pretty simple setup, those core principles, they still hold true.
Okay.
Our moods and how confident we feel can really impact how we approach decisions in all areas of life, whether it's personal stuff, work stuff, or even financial decisions.
So it's not just about winning or losing a few points in an experiment. It's about how we handle those big life choices.
Exactly.
Like career paths, relationships, or investments.
Exactly. Let's say you're thinking about changing careers.
Okay.
That's a big leap into the unknown, right?
Definitely a real-world example of dealing with uncertainty.
For sure. Now imagine you're feeling really optimistic and confident.
Okay.
You might be more likely to embrace that challenge, focus on the potential rewards, and just go for it.
Take that leap of faith.
Exactly. But on the other hand, if you're feeling anxious or uncertain, you might hesitate.
Yeah.
You might overthink all the risks and potentially miss out on a great opportunity. And that's where that concept of metacognition comes in.
Right.
It's so crucial.
It's like having that little voice in your head
Yeah.
saying, hey, I know you're feeling stressed right now, but let's look at this objectively and consider all the angles.
No, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Metacognition helps us avoid making those impulsive decisions
Right.
just based on how we're feeling at the moment. And it allows us to make more rational choices.
This is starting to make a lot of sense.
Good.
But how can we actually get better at this metacognitive awareness in our daily lives? Are there any practical tips or strategies we can use?
Absolutely. One of the most important things is to just pay attention to your mood and how confident you're feeling
Okay.
when you're facing a big decision. Just take a moment to check in with yourself.
So be mindful of our emotional state
Yeah,
and recognize how it might be shaping our view of things.
precisely.
Okay.
And if you notice that your mood is really swaying your decision-making, try to step back and create some space between your emotions and the actual decision.
That sounds helpful.
It can be.
But sometimes it feels like our moods are so strong,
Right.
it's hard to separate them from the situation.
Yeah.
What can we do in those cases?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that while we can't always control our moods,
Yeah.
we can influence them.
Okay.
Remember the study? The participants' moods were directly affected by whether they were winning or losing.
Right. They felt better when they were winning.
Yeah,
Less positive when things weren't going their way.
exactly.
But how do we create those, like, winning moments in our own lives?
Right.
Especially when we're facing challenges or uncertainty.
It's all about actively creating a positive emotional environment
Okay.
that supports good decision-making. That could involve setting achievable goals, celebrating small wins, practicing gratitude, or surrounding yourself with supportive people.
So it's about creating those positive vibes,
Yes.
even when things are tough.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes just looking at a situation from a different angle can shift your mood and help you see things in a new light.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you're feeling stressed about a big presentation at work.
Okay. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on the possibility of messing up, you could reframe it as an opportunity to show off your skills and connect with your audience.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right.
By changing our focus, we can change the emotional story
Yeah.
and maybe boost our confidence along the way.
Exactly. And that increased confidence can then lead to better performance,
Right.
creating a positive feedback loop.
This is all so insightful. We've gone from understanding how mood and confidence affect decisions in a lab setting
Yeah.
to figuring out how we can use these principles in our real lives,
Right.
even when things are complex and uncertain.
And I think this leads us perfectly into our next topic.
Okay.
How these findings relate to those big life-changing decisions that often have long-term consequences.
We've been talking about how mood and confidence can really impact our choices, especially when things are uncertain. But I'm thinking about those really big life decisions,
Oh, yeah.
the ones that have long-term consequences, and we often have to make without having all the information.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
We've talked about career changes,
Hmm.
but what about things like choosing a life partner,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
or buying a house,
Oh, yeah. Big one.
or making a major investment?
Yeah.
These are choices that play out over years, even decades,
Definitely.
and they always come with a certain amount of uncertainty.
Or absolutely, those are the decisions that can keep you up at night.
For sure. And it's so interesting to think about how our mood and confidence levels might be affecting those big choices.
Mhm.
We know from the study that feeling good can make us more confident,
Right.
and that might lead us to take bigger risks or go for opportunities that someone who's more cautious might avoid.
So someone in a good mood might be more likely to say yes to like a once-in-a-lifetime adventure.
Exactly.
Or invest in something risky, but with a big potential payoff.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that a positive mood doesn't always mean a good outcome.
Right, of course.
Sometimes being overconfident can make us impulsive or blind to potential problems.
I'd say there's a fine line between confidence and recklessness.
Right.
So how do we know when we're just being swayed by a temporary mood
Yeah.
versus having a real sense of clarity?
That's where metacognition comes in again. Remember, it's the ability to step back and look at how we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're facing a huge decision,
Yeah.
it's crucial to ask yourself, is my mood clouding my judgment? Am I letting my excitement or my fear distort my perspective?
It's like taking a mental time out
Yeah.
to make sure our emotions aren't running the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the study's finding about improved metacognition when we're in a good mood becomes super relevant.
Right, okay.
If we're feeling good and confident,
Yeah.
we might be better at that kind of self-reflection,
Okay.
which helps us make more balanced and thoughtful choices,
That makes sense.
doesn't it?
It's like we can use that positive energy to boost our critical thinking skill.
Exactly. But here's another interesting thing.
Okay.
The study found that people in the low reward state,
So the ones feeling less positive?
yes, the ones dealing with more uncertainty, they actually showed more flexibility in their decision-making.
Oh, that's surprising.
Isn't it?
So maybe a little bit of uncertainty can make us more adaptable,
It seems that way.
more open to changing direction.
They were more responsive to feedback and kept adjusting their approach based on new information.
Okay.
This suggests that even when we're not feeling super confident, a little bit of healthy uncertainty can actually push us to explore different options.
Yeah.
And that can lead to better decisions in the end.
So it's not always about chasing that super confident, positive feeling.
Right.
Sometimes a little bit of doubt can be a good thing.
I think that's a really valuable takeaway.
Yeah.
We often try so hard to be certain and confident.
Yeah, we do.
But being okay with a little uncertainty and being willing to adjust our plans, that can be just as important.
Especially for those big, long-term decisions.
Exactly.
Wow. This has been such a fascinating deep dive. We've gone from understanding how mood and confidence work in an experiment to exploring how we can use these ideas in our own lives,
Yeah.
even when dealing with complicated situations.
Exactly.
And we've learned that metacognitive awareness, being able to reflect on our own thinking, can help us make better choices no matter how we're feeling.
It's a good reminder that our emotions are powerful. They can shape how we see the world and influence our choices.
For sure.
But by understanding how this all works,
Mm-hmm.
we can become more mindful decision makers, even when we're facing uncertainty, which is just a part of life.
Absolutely.
And so that brings us to our final thought for you, our listeners. We've talked a lot about mood and confidence. But what about intuition, that gut feeling? Can we trust our gut when making those big life choices? Or should we always stick to logic and analysis?
That's a great question.
It is, and we encourage you to think about it.
Yeah.
Keep exploring this fascinating connection between how we feel, how we think, and the choices we make.
This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Keep exploring and stay curious.